Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, a book which is available in audio format. You can check it out on Audible or on Apple Books. And Audible, it's about 16 and change for a copy. On Apple Books, it's $9.99. So it's your choice. We got about 8 days left until the Red Wings take the ice again against the Ottawa Senators. So if you're looking for that itch to scratch, check out the book. It's 12 hours of NHL history, basically, through the perspective of 65 play-by-play broadcasters, past and present. They're discussing 35 NHL teams, past and present, and giving you 60 plus years, more or less, of their experiences going back basically over 2 millennia worth of broadcasting experience between these 65 broadcasters. You got names like Bob Costas, Marvin, Kenny Albert, Gary Thorne, Mike Emmerich, better known as Doc Emmerich, and then going further and further, Mike Lang. But these broadcasters tell about the highs and lows of the team, also some of the craziest things they've ever witnessed, which I don't know if you've noticed, but the NHL is no stranger to crazy. We've seen some of the most insane things that a major sport has to offer, and they're all here in this book, and the people who told the firsthand their stories about them. You also got Stanley Cup glory, obviously, the team's pinnacle moments, but also one team's feast is another team's famine, and a lot of times when the Red Wings were feasting, the other teams were having their famine, and vice versa. So if you want to see how the Red Wings kind of stack up in the other chapters, you got obviously the Colorado chapter. So there's basically 2 chapters discussing the blood feud. The San Jose Sharks gives a pretty lengthy story on the Red Wings. St. Louis Blues also, they're there pretty much in most of these games or most of these chapters because, let's face it, everybody loves to take on, if not beat, or get beaten by the Red Wings and just sharing the history with them. That's my spiel for the book. I'm coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena. Now, I already mentioned that we're about 8 days from the Red Wings taking the ice, which means that we're 14 days into this hiatus. Before the Red Wings take action, we still got a few days of men's competition as far as ice hockey goes over there in Milano Cortina. And yesterday was the preliminaries, so 4 games were played, and here's how they went down. Sweden beat Latvia 5-1. This was the 7 versus 10 matchup. Lucas Raymond for the Red Wings, representing the Red Wings, I should say, for Team Sweden, had 3 assists. So that's got him at 8 total points through his 4 games in the tournament. Connor McDavid had 9 points through 3 games. So look at Raymond catching up there with Connor McDavid. Scoring goals, though, were Kempe, Landeskog, Forsberg, Zibanejad, and Nylander. This really sounds like a pretty solid all-star team. Makes me a little scared for the U.S. taking on Sweden in today's quarterfinal matchup. Second game, Germany 5-1 over France. Speaking of another Red Wing, Seider had an assist, and Draisaitl got a goal and 2 assists. So they will be taking on Slovakia. That was so we had 7-10. This probably was the 6 versus 11 matchup. Another matchup was Switzerland over Italy, 3-1. Nick Hischier got a goal and 2 assists, and Timo Meier had 2 assists. They will take on Finland. And finally, the 8 versus 9, Czechia beat Denmark 3-2. This was the closest game yesterday. Nekas had a goal and an assist. And lucky you, Czechia, you get to take on Canada in the quarterfinals. Woo! So there's basically how things are panning out right now. Tomorrow we'll talk about these 4 games today and see who's moving on. Obviously, the U.S. has a tough road ahead of them. This is going to be their toughest opponent in Sweden. They haven't played anybody this competitive yet, and pretty stacked with NHL players. So, as much as I want to see Raymond continue to succeed and do well, he's my favorite. He and Kane are my 2 favorites on the wings. But as much as I like Raymond, I still want the U.S. to prevail in this one and get to that gold medal game against Canada eventually. I'm already mapping it out. Like, there's no upsets here apparently, but this is what we're kind of feasibly seeing is happening. But this is going to be a first and a tough one. Canada obviously earned that spot to basically play Czechia, in the quarterfinals, and they obviously don't have as tough of a matchup today as the U.S. But you know what? Stranger things have happened in the past. We're 46 years removed from the miracle, and who knows? But that's how things are going right now. We'll have basically a recap of today's game in tomorrow's show and see who the leaderboard is for all the players moving now that they've all had a chance to play once again. Now, let's take a little break from the on ice and talk a little about the off ice and this series, this Depleted rivalry series that we've been doing over the past couple of weeks here on the show, because there's nothing to talk about except for this just budding series of enchantment. Anyway, enough of the flowery talk. Here's my pitch for Depleted Rivalry book number 3. Basically, what I'm doing is taking some real life players and romanticizing or fantasizing or whatever you want to call it, Hollywooding it up. That's really what it is. And here's how this one plays out. The hits just keep coming for Evander Kane. Traded to the worst team in the Pacific would be bad enough, but coming on the heels of leaving the 2-time league runner-up for this, Evander just wants to play dirty and be left alone. He definitely doesn't want to work on his on-ice presence with the would-be suitor teams who could get him out of Vancouver. Beat writer Brendan McLean can tell standoffish Evander isn't happy about his new digs, but Brendan has a whack sense of reality. Even though common sense would say Larks, Mo, Showtime, and the Cat would want nothing to do with the never really was on their team, Brennan still made the statement that Evander would help provide the Red Wings with a mild boost of offense, playoff experience, and much-needed grit, if traded. Suddenly, Evander's potential move to the Red Wings feels like an opportunity for him to embrace his true self and for both he and Brennan to prove themselves right after all. Being a terrible idea on paper is one thing, but looking up to those LCA rafters and the freshest jersey bearing the 91 Evander has worn in so many places just proves the fears he's faced during these past 3 teams for his journeyman status. There's just no place for another 91 nor another Kane in this rink, Evander. What do you think, folks? Is it worthy of the big screen? Is it worthy of a green light from the publisher for book number 4? We'll see. Tune in next week for book number 4, whatever I make it up to be. Because obviously you can just throw this together in a week, can't you? All right, enough of that. Let's get back to the Red Wings action. The schedule ahead. We're going to, since we don't really have any hump to talk about, it being Wednesday, I figured I'd fill in with annual checkup. We've already done 2 or 3 annual checkups. You'd think this show's been going on 3 years. No, it hasn't. We've just had our annual checkups a lot more often than every year. So looking at the team through 58 games, we already did this last week, but this is something specific I want to talk about. Last season, they were 14-10-3 on the road through their first 58 games, and they were 17-11-3 at home. This year, through these 58 games, they are 15-9-4 on the road and 18-10-2 at home. That's an improvement of 1 win each, 1 loss each, and, basically the same amount of shootout losses as they were. So really just kind of like a couple of game improvement. I talked about this last week and the fact that last season around this time, even though they're kind of, head and head more or less with the points that they were at team points wise last year versus this year, is the fact that they were in a really solid winning streak at this point up to 58. And it was right around the corner after this last year that they really started their downward spiral and basically took themselves out of playoff contention. This season, though, they've been, struggling a little bit the last few games. So even with the struggle, they're still a few points ahead of last year's pace. So that's something to look at, something to be excited about. Looking ahead, they have 1 less road game, but they have 1 more home game than they were at this pace last year. So that's something. But also the sub 500 teams basically have 10 games against that. and they have 14 games against those that are above 500. Now, this when I say above or sub 500, I'm talking about collecting the losses and shootout and overtime losses. If your wins are more than that, you're above 500. But keep in mind that there are a lot of teams that probably have, like the Vegas Golden Knights, 12, 14 shootout overtime losses. So that game could go either way for the Red Wings on that. And I just think that if we can just stay a little bit more on track and win some of the games we're not supposed to, and definitely win the games we are supposed to, I think we're going to see a little bit of a change. And hopefully the one thing, the monkey that is going to be on our back until we get over it, is this downward spiral here in February and March. And we want to basically just scrub that from our memories and move on, and hopefully move a little bit forward and get a little bit more success. So that's what it's looking like. That's what we're hoping for. We obviously have some tough matchups still to come. We got the Lightning a couple of times. We still got to play the Panthers. And they can be, obviously they're not doing so well this season. The Hurricanes is another team we have to play, but regardless, these are teams that are stacked as far as talent goes. They may not be doing so well, but they could beat you on any day if they really put themselves to it. Washington was a perfect example of that. They kind of threw down the gauntlet for themselves, and they end up winning that game in a shootout the night that Kane basically broke the record for most points for an American-born player. There's a lot of that mentality going on for these teams moving forward. So those are the kinds of things that we need to basically keep our heads up and keep that from being a distraction for us, and just stay the path and hopefully win more games and not fall into that downward spiral here in the next few weeks that will really kind of define whether or not we make it 10 years without a postseason appearance or not. I'm thinking it's going to be the opposite, and a lot of people feel the same way. Let's just prove them wrong. All right, we're going to wrap up the show. Just basically, I mentioned this, but we're 2-3-2 without Simon Edvinsson. And the last game that he played was, interestingly enough, was when he scored the game tying goal that forced overtime and then Larks won it in overtime. So that's what's interesting, is we haven't seen him play since, and they are 2-3-2 without him. We are missing out on those 104 blocks. We're not missing out on those 54 penalty minutes, but I see the hole that's been created. I mentioned this 2-3-2 for a reason. I think that there's been holes in the defense. There's been holes in the offense too, obviously. But when you see, we had a pretty healthy lineup for so many games. When I was doing the comparisons, you'd see these teams have players on the IR and we don't. Now we do, and you can see where it's showing up in the standings. You see where it's showing up on our lack of production, however it is. Defenders can obviously contribute to the offense just as much, because they aren't scoring or not, but a solid defender can get the puck up the ice too. I saw Mo doing it quite a bit for Germany against the United States. So that's one of the things we're missing, and not having Edvinsson kind of throws off our perfectly molded team that we had going on, that had so much going for us, and we were first in the Atlantic for so much time with this. But you see how that little piece gets taken out and how we start to falter a little bit. So I'm hoping with this Olympic break that we see Ed's back, and when we start to make our decisions on if we're doing something on the trade deadline or not, that we have a healthy Ed's to go along with Benny and Mo, and maybe Axel can turn it around, maybe start to have a little bit of a comeback story for the rookie. But in the meantime, we are obviously missing Ed's, bottom line. This has been the show, folks. Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. Again, I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, and LGRW from the PNW.